Recently I've made a couple of fairly critical videos on Gibson. And so some of you may walk away saying that, hey, Barry, you must hate Gibson guitars. You must can't stand Gibson guitars. Well, that couldn't be further from the truth, all right? My issue per se is not necessarily with Gibson guitars particularly. It's with the leadership of Gibson. Don't mix or confuse those two things. I think a company can make good products but have horrible, horrible leadership. And I definitely, without question, believe very, very strongly the leadership within Gibson is absolutely horrendous and has been for a very long time. Now, today I've got to make a decision. Or maybe today you're considering this decision. Do I buy a Gibson or I'm going to pick a manufacturer, a Suhr guitar? Which one should I pick? If I had to pick one, which one would I send back if I bought both and said, I'm going to pick the one that I want to keep, I'm going to send back the other one. And so that's kind of what I'm going to talk about today. So for those of you who are still hung up on this thing that I hate Gibsons, then explain this to me. Why do I own this one? This is a Gibson Les Paul Standard. I actually love this guitar. Look how beautiful this guitar is. Fantastic. Plays like a dream. And the quality and the construction on it is very, very, very good. All right? So then let's follow that up one more time if you don't mind. So riddle me this. Why do I own this beauty right here? I love it. It's a 61 reissue. I love this SG. If I hate Gibson guitars, what's this doing hanging up on my wall? Answer that one for me, would you? Now riddle me this one. Why do I own this one? I'm going to call this the Mini Pearl guitar. Why do I call it Mini Pearl? Because it's still got the price tag on it from when I bought it. And if you don't know who Mini Pearl is, well, those who know, know. I know some of you out there get me. Some of you say, who the crap is that chick? Very cool chick from back in the day. What's going to be my comparison guitar? This one right here. It's a John Suhr guitar. It's got two humbuckers, just like, well, two of those Gibsons, right? It's got a mahogany back on it, all right? The only difference is this is a bolt-on neck versus a glued-on neck. Now, that does make a difference, and I'll concede that. But we're going to talk about this a little bit more detail here in a second. So the question is, if I had to just keep one, which one would it be? And I'm not going to lie to you, it'd be somewhat of a hard decision for me, and I'm going to talk about why. First up, let's talk about the pros and cons of owning a Gibson guitar. The sad reality is you could order 5 Gibson Les Pauls from a vendor, a Les Paul Standard. Let's just use a Standard as an example, right? And the quality control on those guitars would vary greatly. That's been a blemish on Gibson for many, many, many years. They've gone through periods where it's gotten better, and they've gone through periods where it's gotten worse. Now, that doesn't speak to the people on the line. That doesn't mean that the people on the line don't want nothing but the very best. What it does is it speaks to the fact of their leadership team will simply not give them the time to get it right. That is the biggest difference. It's about what the expectation is. What is that expectation? And so some of the cons with a Gibson is the attention to detail. Is there bleed and things like that where the binding meets the body? Is there bleed wash over from that? Are there things like that? When they're doing their finishing work, is it clean and crisp across the board? All right. How does it come out of the case? Is it properly set up? Now, there's a lot of variables that affect that, and sometimes that's not Gibson's fault. Are the knobs always placed on right? And let's don't forget about the dreaded nut problem on this style of neck for Gibson, especially on Les Pauls. They are notorious. Let me show this over here on this camera. They are I can't really get it on that one. So Gibson is notorious for nut problems. If you don't know this or not, a lot of complaints that people will have, and they will say, well, if you get a Les Paul, don't expect to stay in tune. This thing stays in tune like perfection. It hardly ever goes out of tune, no matter how hard I play it. Hardly ever goes out of tune. But it didn't come that way from the factory. So obviously the biggest problem with that is the angle of the strings. Let's see if I can get that more in focus. There we go. The angle of the strings as they come off through here. All right. It's the angle that comes off the string that ultimately causes much of that. And so that's one of the biggest issues. So if you go to a trusted luthier in your town, somebody who you can rely on and trust to work on your guitars, and I strongly encourage you, Guitar Center is not the place. Go find somebody who does quality work, that has a strong reputation, that has been doing it not for years, but for decades. That's going to be your best bet. That doesn't mean the young and up and coming can't do a great job, but they had to learn from somewhere, and more than likely they learned from that guy that's been doing it for decades, all right? But all you have to do is have the nut replaced and have it cut precisely at the right angles when it comes off, and your tuning issues 9 times out of 10 go away. So that's a huge misconception that people have. Now, in this particular guitar right here, I do have some bleed over, very minor. I will say it's very minor. And this, I believe, is a 2000 and, I think 2008, I believe is what this is. I take very good care of my guitars, as you can see. Let's put it over here in this one. And you can see that guitar is just as beautiful today as it ever was from the very beginning. But the reality is it comes with those issues, all right? And so that pretty much about sums up most of the known issues I think most people complain about. I find that the tuners on it are perfectly fine. I don't have any problem with them at all. They've worked great for me, and they've done a great job for me. Once you get that nut corrected, it's a fine instrument. And this is a killer guitar. Again, the biggest problem is in their quality control and what Gibson will allow their employees, how much time they will allow them to do the right job. But with Gibson, those are some of the flaws ultimately. I do love nickel frets on these. I do love it. I understand that you've got to change them more frequently, but I am one of those that's in the camp that nickel sounds better, and I don't want to get into the whole debate. If you believe stainless steel sounds better, then by all means go knock yourself out and enjoy believing that, but not everybody has to believe what you believe, just like I don't expect everyone to believe what I believe. But I do believe when you find a good, solid, well-built, and obviously if you're spending this kind of money, you're expecting attention to detail to be there. You're paying more for the aesthetics. Otherwise, just go buy a lower price Gibson. It's going to be basically the same in all senses for the most part, depending on what you're looking at. Anybody who says that's not a gorgeous guitar, I think you're out of your freaking mind, right? So that's the one thing with Gibson. The bottom line is, if quality and attention to detail matter to you, then odds are you're going to have to go through quite a few of them to find the one that meets that standard. Then on top of that, how the playability and how it feels in your hands and whether that's an instrument that inspires you will mean that you may have to even go through more. That has been my experience over 40 years of playing with Gibson, playing over the years with Gibson guitars or when I play them. All right, now, so let's pop up and let's look at the Suhr guitar, okay? So I'm going to talk about Suhr guitars. Again, probably the only major difference on this particular model. Now, this one is a special one, all right? This is part of the Mahogany Deluxe series. It's a limited run, and this one is actually the prototype that inspired the whole collection. I reached out to John Suhr. They confirmed that this is the prototype, meaning this is really 0 of 0. There were only 50 made, but he said this is the one when they saw this, that they knew they had to make a run on them, a custom run, so this is the one that did it. And you can see aesthetically, although I do need to clean it and get some dust and things like that off of it, I do need to do that and polish up some of the coverings for the pickups and everything. This is a John Suhr. Now, when I talk about Suhr today, it doesn't mean that's your only option. It's really if you're considering between these two, which one would you kind of go for? And you're going to get my 2 cents on this, and that's what today's all about. Now, these are stainless steel frets. I'll give you that. I would prefer to have nickel, but they are stainless steel. And but you have, of course, the humbucker tone, and this guitar sounds when full humbucker mode just as good as that Les Paul sitting over there. It is a 21 fret guitar. That of course has a huge impact on the neck pickup. It's why I don't particularly gel well with 24 fret guitars because I tend to really rely upon the neck pickup for that singing, deep, sweet tone that you get from that. But that's my choice. It's what I'm looking for. Not everybody's looking for that. I've got a buddy who never leaves his humbucker, which is fine. That's what he's doing, okay? So here I'm going to talk about my criticisms of the Suhr guitar. I don't have any. Quality control is absolute perfection. Workmanship, craftsmanship, absolute total perfection. Sound and playability, for me, absolute perfection. Now, playability, I wouldn't always say that with every Suhr. So I wouldn't say that with every one of them, but that's for me, what I find playability for me and what I gel with, you may love. So that's not a wrong or a right. I have actually sent one back in the past because I didn't gel with it. However, everything else was absolute perfection. I don't have a single criticism of this guitar, not one. Again, it's got a mahogany back on it, just like that Les Paul does. It's got a flame maple top on the top of it, just like that Les Paul does. Of course, it's got the body carve in there, so this is a much more comfortable guitar to play. The playability is off the charts. Now, where I will say, overall, where I would say my preference in that Les Paul over there over the Suhr is I actually do prefer a glued-in neck. I do prefer that. I do believe that that makes a difference in the tone. However, that's not this guitar. And so is it a complete apples to apples? I think you could argue that it's not. But it's very, very, very close. It's very, very close. And so if I was looking to spend some money, where would I spend that money? That's the point of today's question, all right? And so I'm not even going to go into aesthetics because that Les Paul over there is beautiful. Obviously, you can see this thing right here is absolutely stunning. And so I think they both are outstanding in that regard. I do like the pickups on these, but they are slightly different than they are over there. But then again, I could put these pickups in that Les Paul, and I could put those Les Paul pickups in here. I could put those Birchberger pickups in here if I wanted to. I could do that if I wanted to. Now, but you get some variety here. Now, it's ironic. It's kind of weird. I hate it when I see the option for split coils on a Gibson. And I know that's kind of stupid. I understand that's just kind of silly on my part. But that guitar over there, and I'm looking at that Les Paul over there. I've hung it back on the wall. That one over there, I guess I just want it true to its form. I don't want it to try to be a one-size-fits-all. Whereas this is kind of doing that, right? You've got various pickup selections here. You've got push-pull pots here. I'll be honest with you. I hardly ever use this, and I hardly ever go in the in-between on this. Hardly ever. But that's me. That's just me. You can be different. There is no wrong or no right. So, in all seriousness, though, if you were to buy this new compared to that one, that Les Paul over there as a standard would be less expensive. But I would say today, the odds of you getting that flame maple top on that Les Paul without going into a custom shop is probably pretty slim. I mean, they are out there, but they're harder to find. Whereas this one on here is gorgeous. I think originally, if you compare the average price of this, now forget that this is a run. Just say you went out and bought this guitar. I would say it would probably sell in the $3,800 to $4,000 range, whereas that Les Paul would be in the $3,200 range. So if money's tight, the Les Paul's a better option for you as far as that. But it just depends on what's important to you and the things that you find important. Again, my issue with Gibson is their leadership and the fact that they're owned by a private equity firm that is obviously dipping their toes in that. Now I happen to have a relationship with a company that is owned by private equity, but I actually made a video about that saying if they ever change, I'm going to do the same thing I've done with Gibson, the same thing I've done with Avid, the same thing I've done with Universal Audio, the same thing I've done with Guitar Center, and I call those people out when I feel like they deserve to be called out, and I'm very critical of them where they deserve to be critical, but I also give praise where they give praise. But that's just my opinion. Who's to say it moves the needle at all? I'm not going to say that in the big scheme of things, but I am very consistent with that. But anyway, I am part of Sweetwater, and the Sweetwater is who I'm talking about. And so far, there hasn't been any impact from what I've seen or experienced. I've been buying from Sweetwater for years and years and years and years, well over a decade. And I've always loved working with buying from that company. As far as I'm concerned, it's the best one out there in America. But anyway, I've got affiliate links down below. If you pick one of those links and you go buy something, whether it's a guitar cable or maybe you can't get this one there. I don't think you can. Can you get Suhr? Maybe you can today. I think you could buy Suhr and definitely buy Gibson if you want to get that. Then I get a small cut of that, and it's how I keep things going. If you're over across the pond over in England, or in Europe over there, you can get Thomann over there, and I have affiliate links to that over there. They're based out of Germany and service all of Europe, but they're, as far as everything I understand, kind of the Sweetwater of Europe. And so I get a small cut of that. So if you want to look at that, that's up to you. If you don't, don't do it. But if you want to support me, go ahead. But so the question, if I had to ask myself, if I fell on hard times and I had to give up one of these guitars, which one would it be? And I'm not going to lie to you. It would be a difficult decision. Now, I'm going to take the fact that I do have some personal emotional ties to this guitar. But let's say, for the sake of this discussion, I'm not going to talk about those. This guitar is actually named after a dear friend of mine who passed away. It's what I call the Avery guitar. So that alone would tell me I would never get rid of it. But after that, let's just say that wasn't the case and those circumstances did not exist. If I just had this guitar as one of the quite a few guitars I've got hanging on my wall over here by different manufacturers and different tones, if I had to choose between one of the two, which one would I get rid of? I'm going to tell you, it would not be an easy decision, but for me, it would be a very clear decision in the end. And this one is the one that I would keep. It is. I would want to, when I got money again, try to find one just like that again at some point. I would do that. The odds of me buying a new one would probably be about absolutely zero. And I'm definitely not going to get into the custom shop thing because I think it's just a bunch of marketing ripoff and people get suckered into it. That's just my opinion. You feel free to disagree with me. You are watching this because you're wanting my opinion. You don't have to necessarily agree with me. I respect your opinion. If you have one, I'll ask you do the same for me. But if I had to choose one, it would be this one. And so that's my 2 cents for the day. If you'd like to know what my opinion is regarding Gibson and Tom Anderson, we'll wait for that one because I've got one back over there that we'll talk about it another time. And then I'll be done with these Gibson videos at the end of the day. But I did want to make it clear. I do love Gibson guitars. I just cannot stand the leadership at Gibson. And that's unfortunate. You know who it's really unfortunate? It's unfortunate for two groups of people. It's unfortunate for people like you and me who grew to know and love that brand, especially if you're my age. You definitely grew to know and love that brand. But also, who it's really, and the saddest part of it's not fair to their employees, the people that do the work. That's where they're being horribly disrespected by their leadership. And the more their leadership does that, that's more, the odds are, just knowing human nature, the odds are those people are going to become less and less engaged in trying to make a great quality product because they're going to start asking themselves, why should I even try to? If my leadership doesn't care, why should I? I guarantee you are never going to find an employee at John Suhr or one of John Suhr's employees to think like that. So that's my story, and I'm sticking to it. I'm picking this bad boy right here. Until next time, hope all of you have a great day. Bye-bye.